I can understand English very well, but I am not able to speak English fluently. This is one of the most frequent questions I get asked. That I can read in English, I can write in English effectively. Even I can completely understand English. But the moment I have to speak in English, I forget every single words as if it's the whole new concept to me. And it seems that I can never speak in English fluently. Well, let me tell you one thing that this is one of the most common issues among English learners, and you are not alone here. There was a time when I also struggled with this issue, and I also had the same mindset that probably I can never speak in English fluently, or I will always get stuck at this point. But you can see now, I can speak in English, and the way I want to articulate my thoughts, I can easily do that without translating everything in my mother tongue and without feeling nervous. So, if you are someone who is thinking that this is one of the problems that you are not able to tackle right now, don't worry. In this video, I will be talking about why this problem happens and how to resolve this problem. So stick around. So first of all, you have to understand one thing that English is not an easy language. Well, I'm not trying to say that this is the very difficult language, but my point is this is one of the languages we have never heard since our childhood because our native language or our mother tongue is completely different from English. And I think there are a very few languages that resemble with English, like Spanish, French, or German, that languages. But if you're someone whose mother tongue is Hindi or any other language, so there is not even a single similarities you can find. So you will have to understand that our mind and our tongue is not trained enough to grasp everything naturally. You will have to work hard to learn this language. So the problem you have is you cannot speak in English fluently whenever you want. So if there is a problem, there will certainly be a solution. So now we have to focus on the solution, that what can we do to overcome this issue and to tackle the whole situation so that we can easily speak in English fluently whenever we want. So there is one thing I would like to say, that if you want to speak English fluently without struggling and without worrying about forgetting the words, then you will have to expose yourself to English language as much as you can. Now, many of you may say that I have been exposing myself to this language as much as I can. Sure, you are doing it, but are you sure that you are focusing on learning every single thing actively? Because when it comes to learning anything, there are two ways to do so. One way is learning something passively, and the another one is learning something actively. And most of us learn things passively, and we think that we are learning everything actively. By saying this, I mean many times we listen to the podcast or we listen to any audiobook while walking, and we think we are focusing on listening every single word, but that's not the reality, because we hardly learn any single word, or our mind hardly grasps even a single sentence, and we think that we have been exposing ourselves to this language, but that's not the reality. We are not learning anything actively, rather we are focusing on learning passively, and that passive learning is one of the steps that does not matter much. Well, it will surely help you to some extent, but if you want to get the quick result, you will have to focus on active learning, even though you are doing it just for 15 minutes or just for 30 minutes. That would be sufficient. But are you sure that all the necessary steps you are doing, are you doing them actively or passively? Because our main focus is to acquire the language by exposing ourselves to this English language as much as we can. Because many times I have noticed, this is something I have personally observed, that I complete the entire chapter, I complete the entire paragraph, sometimes even the entire book. But when I look back and realize how many things I have learned and what was the motive behind that chapter and what was the main point of the chapter, I don't understand anything because I completed the entire chapter, but while reading, I was not paying enough attention to the content I was provided. And it does not happen only with me. I think most of you can relate it with yourself. And this is the case does not happen only while reading, but it happens while listening. Many times you complete the entire podcast, but the moment you look back and you would be like, oh, what did I really learn from this entire podcast? Or did I really pay enough attention to every single thing? So if you're not really sure about what you do, pay enough attention to what are the things you are doing and are you actually learning from them or not. Once you have exposed yourself enough to English language, now the next step you are supposed to focus on is speaking. Speak as much as you can. I know your problem is you are not able to speak at all. But trust me, if you expose yourself enough to English language by focusing on every single step actively, trust me, you can easily speak. You are not able to speak because you are not grasping anything. You have not stored enough in your mind, and that's why you always struggle with speaking. But once you have followed this step for a while, at least for a month, you can easily speak. Your mind will suggest you that, okay, use this topic or use this word to complete your sentence or to complete the thing you are trying to do. So it happens. Now, the next step you're supposed to focus on is speak as much as you can. Now, a lot of you are going to say that, oh, I make a lot of mistakes. Who is going to correct my mistakes? You don't really have to worry about your mistakes. I mean, at first, you have to train your tongue. Your main purpose should be how to train my tongue. No matter whether I'm speaking correct or not, but our whole purpose is to make our tongue trained enough so that it can easily speak without stuttering and without feeling nervous. Now, once your tongue is trained enough, you would not struggle much to speak in English because now you will easily be able to speak. And once you speak as much as you can easily realize about your mistakes. You can easily acknowledge what kind of errors you are making and how you're supposed to do it. Again, you have many options. You can record yourself, you can journal about anything, and it will make you realize about your mistakes. Well, you don't really need to have any tutor because with time you can easily understand what are the sentences you are not speaking correctly and what are the sentences you are not writing in an appropriate way. So it happens naturally. You don't really need to pressurize yourself. I know I get this kind of comment quite often that I have been learning this language for 3 years and now I feel pressurized. Like, why are you feeling pressurized? With time, you will easily be able to acknowledge your errors and about your mistakes, and you can easily correct them. I mean, this is how I did it. I never had any tutor. I never had anyone to correct my mistakes and make me realize about what I am doing wrong. I did everything on my own with time. But yeah, you will have to focus on speaking as much as you can, and please do not run behind perfection. I have seen a lot of people saying that I want to speak English fluently without making any mistakes and I want to speak flawlessly. Why do you want to speak flawless English? I mean, your point should be I want to make my points clear. That's it. I want to articulate my thoughts in front of people. That is enough. And that's what we all have to focus on. Now, no matter how many minutes or how many hours you are spending every single day to learn to speak in English, or what are the steps you are following quite frequently to speak in English fluently, but if you are not being consistent enough, and if you are not following all the required steps you are supposed to follow to speak in English fluently, all of your efforts will go in vain and probably you will not be able to get the best result. See, a lot of people have shared their experiences with me that, you know what, I have been learning this language for a very long period of time, but I always struggle to maintain my consistency. And whenever I do not practice enough, or whenever I leave learning this language for a few days or for a month, I forget everything and I feel that I have lost the momentum. And yeah, it does happen. This is something I have personally experienced. I mean, despite having acquired this level, when I do not speak even for a week or even for 15 days, I feel I have lost the fluency I had back then. And it does not happen only with learning English. No matter what you are learning, no matter what skills you have acquired, but if you do not practice that enough with consistency, you are supposed to forget that. You are supposed to lose the momentum you have built over time. So, if you want to practice, if you want to speak in English fluently and want to get the best result, follow every single step with consistency. Well, I'm not telling you to follow all the steps. All I'm trying to say here is there are a couple of required steps you must follow every single day. And I have made a lot of videos related to that. So I'm sure you have understood what are the steps that are essential for you to speak in English fluently. Just follow all of them with consistency. I know that many times it's super busy. Sometimes you are super busy and sometimes you're having a hectic day. That's all right. But at least make time. Even if you're speaking for 5 to 10 minutes, that's pretty much enough. So please pay enough attention to your speaking skill and do not forget to be consistent. Because if you are not being consistent, no matter how many minutes or how many hours you spend on weekends, you will forget everything. So try to be consistent as much as you can. So now let's summarize this entire video. First of all, you have to understand that English is not an easy language. So instead of being hard on yourself and trying to push yourself harder, just allow some time to yourself. Try to expose yourself to this language as much as you can and focus on learning everything actively instead of just learning things passively. Because if you are learning something actively, even for 15 to 30 minutes, that would be sufficient. So pay enough attention to every single thing you are consuming and you are exposing yourself. Now, once you're done with it, try to focus on speaking as much as you can. The more you speak, the better you will become. Now, even if you're making a lot of mistakes, that's not a big issue. Just be relaxed. I know you might find it a bit funny and you might think, oh, you're saying this because you are able to speak fluently and all. It's not the case. I also was there in that phase and it's not been a long time. It's just been a year ago. I was not able to speak at all. And sometimes I still do make a lot of mistakes, but I don't really care about it that much because I know if I'm making mistakes, I will soon realize about that and I will correct it. So it is as simple as it is. Instead of trying to be perfect, try to focus on speaking as much as you can, even if you're making hundreds of mistakes. Because see, when you're learning something on your own, when you're focusing on self-learning, there's no one going to correct your mistakes. So you will have to correct your mistakes, acknowledge your mistakes, and do everything on your own. So yeah, focus on speaking as much as you can instead of trying to be perfect. And the last step is consistency. Do not ever neglect this one step because it will entirely change your language skill. So that's all about this video. I hope you liked watching this video and you learned at least something or other from this one. So yeah, just please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and I'll see you very soon in the next video. Bye bye.